And we're live. Hey, Wellness Warriors, Diane Kazer here again, and I've got another really awesome episode today for you. We're going to do a short one because I know that everybody's attention span is like this big these days. So what I did is I brought one of the most amazing specialists and doctors in the field that I am the most passionate about right now, and I think it's pretty much my new thing, the field of autoimmune disease. And me, Diane Kazer, when I first started this journey with thyroid issues, and we're talking about hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's today, I went in and out of the hospital trying to figure out what was wrong with me for years. And the doctor that we're talking to today, Dr. Izabella Wentz, who wrote this book, she's actually on her second book now that will be coming out very soon, but she wrote this book because she had a very similar journey as I did. And this is not just about me. It's not about Dr. Wentz. It is about you ladies, and men too, of course, but autoimmune disease is affecting more than 10% of the American population today. There's so many people who are going underdiagnosed or misdiagnosed, or they're just not looking. Doctors today, the conventional model is not looking for disease until it has already arrived. So we're having a lot of issues with weight loss. We're having a lot of issues with hair loss, with skin issues, and fatigue and depression and sleep issues. So I think there's one very important gland we need to talk about today that embodies pretty much all of that. So Dr. Wentz, thank you so much. Dr. Izabella, I know you like to be called Dr. Izabella better. So thank you so much for being here today with us.
Hi, Diane. Thank you so much for having me on. It's really exciting to be here with you.
Yeah, so your journey, what I'm going to do, you guys, so that you guys can read that, is that Dr. Izabella Wentz's journey is going to be below so that you guys can read about that. But we're going to go over and cover some of these things, and that's the reason why she is so compassionate on this topic, is because she's been through so much, and likely a lot of you guys are too. So whatever resonates with you, you can follow up with me, you can follow up with Dr. Izabella Wentz on our Facebook page, and we're going to give you a free gift at the end too, so stay tuned for that. We're only going to talk for about 15 minutes on this stuff, and then we're going to have a follow-up to this, like I said, in about 2 months. So basically, here are the questions for today. What is your thyroid? What is it? What does it do? Why does that matter to me? What signs should I look out for that might clue me into I might have an issue with this, which is very common. And then how do I know if I have it? And then the next webinar will be what can I do about that? So Dr. Izabella, let's get into first, just really briefly with each one of these 5 questions I have for you today. What is the thyroid gland, which is right here?
So the thyroid gland is a tiny little gland that everybody has, and what it does is it really has a very important job of regulating our metabolism. So it helps our cells move things along. A person with an underactive thyroid might have trouble with losing weight, or they may be gaining more weight. They also might have trouble with having enough of energy production, so they'll often be fatigued. And another common symptom is that people with an underactive thyroid may be always cold, and they may not be able to regulate their body temperature effectively. So those are kind of the main functions of the thyroid, is to regulate metabolism, energy, as well as our temperature.
So this is what I've got. Is this backwards? Can you see it?
Oh, this is excellent. Yeah.
Metabolism slows down, energy is sluggish, and I am cold. That's actually how I knew when I was 17 researching this. I was like, I need a blanket everywhere I go. How come I'm so cold all the time? So, and you know, 2 of the most common medications that are used today and supplement industry too is I need more energy. You know, you've got like the crazy energy drink industry that's just going off the hook, you know, long Starbucks lines. So people's energy are low, and we've got an obesity crisis, which is, of course, 3 out of 4 of us are overweight or obese. And the cold thing, I know, is not as much of an epidemic, but the other 2 are. So what's going on? What is hypothyroidism, and what is Hashimoto's? Because this is something that people are hearing more about, but they don't necessarily correlate it to the thyroid or even care until we talk about these symptoms. So what is it?
So basically, hypothyroidism is when the body does not have enough thyroid hormone on board. And this can be very problematic because every single cell in our bodies actually uses thyroid hormone. And like we said, we can have a lot of symptoms when we don't have enough of the thyroid hormone on board. So in addition to fatigue, weight gain, as well as being cold, some of the other symptoms may be losing your hair. Your hair becomes unmanageable. You can't brush it. You start losing it in the shower. Women might have trouble with fertility issues. So women may have multiple miscarriages or may have trouble becoming pregnant. And then some women actually may have mood disorders. So an underactive thyroid may mimic a mood disorder. So a person may be feeling like they're depressed if their thyroid is underactive. If they have Hashimoto's, they might get some of that, and they may also have some additional symptoms, including feeling anxious, having panic attacks, having palpitations, feeling like they have bipolar disorder, and I've even seen some women who are misdiagnosed with psychiatric disorders like psychosis, hospitalized, put on heavy-duty antipsychotic medications or antidepressant medications. The thing that's really important for people to know is that an underactive thyroid, that probably 90 to 97% of the time, it's actually caused by an autoimmune condition known as Hashimoto's. Hashimoto sounds like a very exotic name, but it's actually very, very common, and as many as 1 in 5 women may be affected at some time in their lives. Puberty, pregnancy, and perimenopause seem to be some of the top times in a woman's life where she may be diagnosed with a thyroid condition. And hormonal fluctuations are thought to play a role in triggering this condition.
Definitely. I know that stress is a big part of all this, as is the root of most all diseases. And so, of course, the more we love on ourselves, the more we take care of ourselves. We'll talk about some of the things that can bring this on. But so I took these notes here, which the other symptoms would be women complaining of hair loss and infertility. We've got a lot of people spending tens of thousands of dollars trying to get pregnant. And what if it's just the thyroid? What if it's just as simple as fixing a thyroid gland? And that it's, your body's trying to tell you something. Because a lot of signs, symptoms like that are just telling us that our body is imbalanced somewhere. Miscarriages, depression, anxiety, and sleep issues. So a lot of us are getting misdiagnosed. This is a woman with a brush and a whole bunch of hair falling off of the brush. And she doesn't have very many hairs left on her head. So, most of us will actually start to ask for help, and we know this, Dr. Izabella, we're vain creatures. When we can't lose the weight, or when our skin doesn't glow and our hair is falling out, we're seeing it in the bathtub, that's the time that most people will start to take better care of themselves. I know that was like a bunch of light bulb moments for you too. So, go ahead.
I said, yeah, absolutely. When I started losing my hair, it was pretty devastating because it was a constant reminder that there was something off about my body.
Absolutely. And your body's, it's basically like, and I remember you said this before, it's a blessing. It's like a wake-up call, and we're going to talk about that next. So we talked a lot about the symptoms, and so the misdiagnosis that we're having today, a lot of people who are taking depression medications and everything, what could be the long-term consequences of not having been diagnosed the right way? Like, so let's say someone, for instance, has been, and I don't know how long you didn't go diagnosed. I know for me, it was probably a decade. So what are some of the long-term consequences of this not getting diagnosed properly?
It's really, for me, it was almost a decade as well. And it's really losing part of yourself and losing your life. For me, I was exhausted for almost a decade where I would sleep for 12 to 14 hours a night. I have family members who've been diagnosed, and they said, I just didn't feel very smart for a few years. Thyroid disease can cause brain fog and memory loss. So you can actually lose a large chunk of your life if not properly diagnosed. A lot of times you'll see people with heart disease, high cholesterol. You'll see people with, very much putting on a ton of weight, no matter how much they're exercising, no matter how few calories they're eating. And you'll just see a whole bunch of different symptoms. In very, very extreme cases, when you've had it for a very long time, a person can actually fall into a coma. But thankfully for modern medicine, we don't see that nowadays. But obviously you want to catch it before that time, because it can really prevent you from living the life that you want and being the person that you want. So it can make you withdraw into a little shell. You may not have any energy. You might think that there's something wrong with you, that you're depressed, that you're losing your mind. And yeah, it's something that I highly recommend getting tested for every woman, because it's so common.
Yeah. I've heard the estimates, like you said, 1 out of 5, and some people have even said almost as high as 1 in 2 or in the future. So I know it's something that we need to bring more light to. And that's why I'm so happy that you wrote this book, this Amazon bestseller. And I'm really excited about the next one too. So women who are diagnosed, and we'll get into the lab work and like what things to look for and how to work with your doctor on this and the types of drugs that are out there next. But so we've talked about in the past, like there's 3, there's a kind of a triage of things to occur, at which point there's this perfect storm and Hashimoto's presents itself. So we know that what Hashimoto's is that the immune system gets confused and starts attacking the thyroid. But so what are those three things? And are genetics our fate? If like our mom has Hashimoto's, I think you said that you had it in your family history too.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So definitely genetics are a part of the the three things that need to occur. So you need to have the genetic predisposition to develop Hashimoto's, and women of Caucasian and Asian descent are especially at higher risk. The other part of it is having the right trigger on board. So it might be an infection, it might be a nutrient deficiency, it might be stress, it might be a toxin. And then the other part of the piece is actually something known as intestinal permeability, also known as leaky gut in the lay terms. But basically, our gut has a very important job of regulating our immune system. Most people don't know this, but most of our immune system actually reside in the gut. And so if you have the intestinal permeability, cells are not going to be repairing properly, and then your immune system loses its ability to differentiate self from non-self. So with Hashimoto's, basically the thyroid gland gets under attack by our own immune system because the immune system thinks the thyroid is an invading enemy, like a parasite or a bacteria or a virus.
Right. And so and I wrote this down, there's 1, 2, and 3. So the causes, there's a lot of spaces in there, but genetics, we're predisposed to it. Stresses like things like toxins or pathogens like parasites and candida and bacteria and viruses, like you said, heavy metals, and then intestinal permeability, which could be caused by a lot of these toxins or stress or, what in the diet would be good examples of that, Dr. Wentz, like the things that we're consuming that could cause the gut to be more leaky?
One of the big things is actually the protein found in can contribute to intestinal permeability. And
what was that? I'm sorry, it was hard to hear.
Gluten. So protein found in wheat can contribute to intestinal permeability. It depends on the person. In people who have celiac disease, you have a little bit, and your intestines are permeable for days to weeks. In people who are gluten sensitive, that may range from hours to days. And then in people who, the smaller percentage, or the other people who are not as sensitive, they may only have it for minutes to hours. But this effect actually occurs in everybody. Every human is not able to digest that protein properly because it's a very, very big protein. So that's something to consider. One of the first things I recommend if you have been diagnosed with a thyroid condition is to try going gluten-free. And 95% of my clients that I've worked with and just readers that I've surveyed feel better on a gluten-free diet. So gluten-free diet can help people with their energy levels, with their weight, as well as a lot of the other symptoms that are associated with Hashimoto's.
That's not supposed to ring. Just 1 second. A friend calling me from Rio right now. Anyway, what you said about gluten is huge, because I know that you've probably been hearing this too. So many people are saying, oh, this whole gluten-free thing, it's just a fad. Mm-hmm. And you've heard it straight from the doctor, you guys. It's something that she said that 95% of her patients that she's worked with have benefited from going gluten-free. And then, of course, like I wrote down here, the offenders will be gluten and food sensitivities. So that's something that one of the tests I'm sure we'll talk about next is doing the food sensitivity test. So how strict would people need to be with gluten-free when they first start this, Dr. Izabella?
I would say you definitely want to be gluten-free for 3 months, and just you want to be strict about it. So it's kind of like being pregnant. You can't just be a little bit pregnant. You want to be fully on board with being gluten-free, because even a little bit can really mess things up for you.
Yeah, and the little hint, you guys, for the free gift later will help you with that Dr. Izabella Wentz has put together. And I know there's something else that I wanted to illustrate, is that you probably work with a lot of women this way too, and not just women, but men. One autoimmune disease can bleed into multiple. Like I've got one client right now, and she's got 6 autoimmune diseases. And so that's one of the risks of not being properly diagnosed or not working with a doctor who's more forward thinking about looking at the right markers. So let's talk about that next, because you've got lupus and MS and some of these more advanced ones. That's like, at that point, can we reverse it? So, before we get to that point, I wanted to ask you, is autoimmune disease reversible?
Yeah, absolutely. So the research shows that you can reverse autoimmune disease if you take away the triggers. And basically, you need to have all three of those things in place. So you can't really change our genes at the moment. If we can identify and remove our triggers, like if it's an infection that you can identify and treat, that's one thing you can do. And then the third piece of the puzzle that you can always bring on is getting rid of your intestinal permeability. So this is something that if you just remove one of those things, then the autoimmunity can be reversed. So not to say if you got intestinal permeability again, you may develop it again at some point. So it's kind of a maintenance program, but it's definitely, there's a lot we can do to make ourselves feel better and reverse it.
Yeah, and I can attest to that once I fixed this and once I sort of went into my remission, I have total high energy all the time, and people, to the point where I almost annoy people sometimes because they're probably like, why does she have so much energy and I want more of that? And everybody's like a 5. What's your energy level? On a 1 to 10, most people who have this issue are like 5. Gosh, can we get you like a 10? And that's probably what you experienced when you worked on healing your gut too, right?
You know, I thought I was like superhuman. I was like, wow, where did this all come from? Because I used to sleep for 10 to 14 hours a night to feel fully rested. And all of a sudden I was waking up, you know, at 6 a.m. bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So it was amazing.
Yeah, to like not have to feel like you have to keep hitting snooze over and over again or reach for more coffee or Red Bull or whatever the assault is that would be furthering the taxing to your adrenals. So let's talk about testing, because this is the most important part, is like we said earlier, is a lot of people are going misdiagnosed. So let's talk about what conventional medicine is doing now today to, you know, just like someone goes in for a checkup and they run all the markers. What are they looking for, and what's the issue with that approach?
So the conventional medical approach is to test for the TSH, which is the thyroid stimulating hormone test. And this is basically a pituitary hormone that responds to thyroid levels circulating in the body. Now, this signal doesn't always get properly, it doesn't always pick up what's happening in the thyroid, so it's not always the best test. The TSH test can be normal for a decade, maybe even longer, while you have Hashimoto's and while your immune system attacks your body. The other concern with this test is that when scientists first figured out the reference range of what a normal person's TSH should be, they had people within that range, within the pool of blood, who basically had thyroid disease. So the reference range is pretty lax, and they were saying that basically your TSH can be, you know, as high as an 8 and you'd still be considered normal, where we now know that a TSH of around 1 is going to be ideal for most people, and definitely not higher than like a 2.5. Problem is that while most labs know this, and the problem is that not many doctors know this, and not all labs have adjusted their lab results appropriately. So functional medicine practitioners will know this, but if you go to a traditional doctor, they may not always pick this up.
Right, and that's where we're seeing a lot of the problems today, is they're looking at TSH instead of looking for thyroid antibodies, right? It's kind of like reversed.
Absolutely, and you know, the best test for Hashimoto's is actually to see if you have thyroid antibodies. The 2 antibodies I recommend for Hashimoto's are TRT antibodies, and then thyroglobulin antibodies, which you can abbreviate as TG antibodies. And these antibodies are going to be positive in 90% and 80% of the women with Hashimoto's respectively. So if you have these antibodies, that means you have Hashimoto's. And looking at, most likely means that you have Hashimoto's, unless, you know, sometimes it can be Graves' disease, but you would want to talk to your doctor about what you mean. And then that's going to basically allow you to prevent damage to the thyroid gland and keep them up early enough. And it's also going to help you figure out what you need to do to get your life in order and your health back in order.
Yes, this is why when people say, yeah, I got clearance that my TSH was fine, and then you look at the CBC panel and it's like 0.5 to 5, and they're within this range, and doctors haven't said anything to them about it. And so I wrote down these notes here. So if you guys are going to talk to a doctor about this, this is stuff that you'll actually see in Dr. Izabella's book and by visiting her website also. TSH, you want it to be no more than 2.5, about 1. T4, T3, reverse T3, and then the 2 thyroid antibodies. And I know that you suggest looking at vitamin D levels too, which is a very common thing that's deficient in people who have thyroid disease. So,
absolutely. So vitamin D, B12 levels, as well as ferritin, which is the iron storage form, are going to be some of the most common deficiencies in people with Hashimoto's, and those contribute to hair loss, or energy, fatigue as well.
Absolutely. So I wrote that down here too, you guys. So D, ferritin, and B. Okay. And that's like a mouthful right there. So what is the likelihood that somebody will be able to walk into a doctor, let's say a general practitioner, and say, hey, I would like these 6 markers run. Can you help me?
You know, I think the likelihood is good if you found a good doctor that's willing to support you. If you wanted to justify your case, you would want to maybe write down all the symptoms that you're having and, you know, let them know that you have a family history of Hashimoto's. That always helps. You know, I know a lot of times people will ask me what I do, and I say that I, you know, help them with Hashimoto's, reverse their conditions, and they'll say, wow, that's a really rare condition. And I'll say, no, it's pretty common, and oftentimes it turns out that the person I was just speaking to has a mother, sister, friend who takes thyroid medications. And so if you have a family member that takes thyroid medications, there's a really good chance they're taking it because of Hashimoto's. They may not have been told they have Hashimoto's. They were probably just told they had a sluggish thyroid.
Yeah, I firmly believe my mom has that issue. And when I take my blood pressure, when I first started doing this, I was like 97, or no, I'm sorry, my body temperature, I was like 97 point something instead of 98 something. So that's how I knew that I had low blood pressure, and I was like, I think this is all some thyroid related. And so this is what something like, you may not get as advanced of a test like this, ladies, but just so you can see, these are the 6 markers on here, and I flagged this one up here because TSH was low, and then I flagged this one over here because I saw that there was a heavy antibody, so that you guys can see that it shouldn't exceed these amounts. So that's just one example. And then before we get into the final question, here's another lab that this is one I ran on myself. We talked a lot about how toxins and pathogens can have a lot to do with taking the thyroid down, and this was my lab test from a while ago. And I had everything. I had high bacteria, I had high parasites, I had high candida, and so my gut was really inflamed. And that's what you mentioned, is that an inflamed gut, and then also micronutrient and macronutrient deficiencies can also be, like B and ferritin and D, can also be a cause for assault on the thyroid. So there's a lot of advanced testing out there that if you guys don't have a doctor that's going to work with you, then you can follow Dr. Izabella Wentz's her book, her website. You can email me, because there's more hope than there are a lot of doctors that might say, no, there's no value in looking at that, right?
You know, absolutely. And I always recommend working with a functional medicine practitioner to really get to the root cause of the condition, because, you know, conventional doctors, unfortunately, they might give you a diagnosis of Hashimoto's or thyroid disease and give you medications, but that's kind of the limitation of what they'll do, because they'll say there's nothing you can do about your condition other than to take your medications, wait until your thyroid burns out, and then we have to monitor you for additional autoimmune conditions, where functional medicine practitioners will actually say, let's try to figure out what's triggering this condition, let's address some of these leaks, and let's try to reverse it and get you into remission.
Yeah, it gets me all excited, because it gives people hope. When I talk to women who have this issue and they're not able to lose weight and their hair's falling out, their skin's all, it's not glowing the way they want it to, they're like, I can't fix this. My doctor told me there's nothing I can do. Just take this drug. So let's talk about the drugs that are out there, because I do hear of a lot of women going into to have their blood drawn, and they're having medication switches, or a lot of times dosages changes, and then they've got a high levels of synthroid that they're taking. So what could be the danger in just recommending a drug and then just continuing to increase the dose?
Well, you know, if you're just taking a medication, I like to think of medications as basically, if you had a bucket with a hole and you were trying to keep it full of water, and you just kept adding more water to the bucket without plugging up the hole, that's sort of what you're doing in Hashimoto's when you're taking medications. So sure, the medications are going to help with symptoms, and I definitely recommend taking them if somebody has a lot of thyroid symptoms and their numbers are all out of whack, because they're going to help people feel much, much better. But if you have if you have an underlying root cause or trigger in your body that's causing your gut to be permeable, then there's a really good chance that you might actually develop additional autoimmune conditions. and that your things are just going to keep getting worse for you instead of getting better on just the medication. So the danger of taking medications, in my opinion, is that you basically can mask some of the symptoms that you may have. You know, obviously, if you do the functional medicine testing, then you'll be able to get more information about what else is going on in your body, like the nutrient deficiencies, like the infections, potentially toxins that are setting off the thyroid and acting as a trigger. So the different medications out there, Synthroid was the most commonly prescribed medication in 2013 in all of the United States, because thyroid disease is so common. Helps many people, but unfortunately, some people just don't do very well on this medication. It's considered a pro-hormone, which means that it needs to turn into T3. So Synthroid has T4, which is a pro-hormone, which needs to turn into T3 in the body to make it more active. And so there are medications out there that you can take that have T4 and T3 all together. One of the names is Armour, Nature-Throid, WP Thyroid, or compounded thyroid medications from a compounding pharmacist can be, you know, the choices for that. And so I would encourage people to work with a practitioner that's open-minded and that will consider, you know, what would be best for you, whether that's to be on medication, to not be on medication, to, you know, choose a different type of medication for you or optimize your dosage.
Awesome. Yeah, that's pretty huge. And knowing that if you're taking Synthroid, which is just T4, then, and if you have gut inflammation, which I showed you a copy of my lab result, and those are the functional medicine labs that I use. But if you have gut inflammation, there's a lower chance that it'll be converted to T3, which is the active, like you said, the active thyroid hormone for all of the cells in your body. So that's a little bit more complicated, and I know that people have to continue to increase their dose and monitor that. Then there's other ones that it just depends. Each person's going to be different. The Armour, Nature-Throid, and some people have actually switched around between those desiccated thyroids and compound pharmacies and found their harmony. And then I know some people are able to get off of medication eventually, right, too?
Yeah, some people can. So if you address all of them, and some people will address the nutrient deficiencies, you get rid of infections. Some people may be able to reduce their dosage of medication, and I've even seen some people who are able to come off of medication completely because thyroid tissue does regenerate. You know, it's different in every person, so I can't say that every single person who will do lifestyle interventions will be able to get off of thyroid medication, but I can say that most people will feel much, much better and will help prevent the progression of the condition.
Great. That's important to realize because so many people just accept that it's their fate. And I'm taking this medication and I'm just going to keep going because no one ever told me anything about gluten. No one ever told me about healing my gut and what the gut even has to do with my thyroid and why I can't lose weight. So we're going to cut it off here. This is great information already. So you guys can start getting active and proactive with maybe your last blood panel that you probably might not see all of these 6 markers, but like Dr. Izabella said, those are things, and then the list that I've shown you, those are things that you could ask your doctor to participate in. I've actually had women go in and demand those 6 markers, and they've kind of gotten little debates with the doctor because the doctor's like, no, I'm not going to run those tests because I don't see value in it because we don't look at antibodies unless your TSH is out of range, you know, out of 5 or less than 0.5, which is very unlikely. So it's backwards. And so if you guys know that going in and you just, you know, you come in empowered, you've done your research and you demand, then hopefully they're going to work with you. And if they don't, you might want to ask to switch doctors or endocrinologists. And then you could also reach out to us. So the next thing we're going to talk about in a couple of months is how you can actually treat this, work around this, reverse it, potentially even go into remission and prevent the likelihood that you'll have more autoimmune disease because we want to collect glitter and hairspray and cool clothes and fun yoga pants. We don't, and cute dresses. We don't want to collect autoimmune diseases, right? I'm sure we're all in agreement there. So, Dr. Izabella, how can people find you and what is this awesome gift that you're offering the ladies today?
Okay, great. So you can go to thyroidpharmacist.com/gift. And what I'll have for you in there is my nutrient depletions and digestion chapter that will go over all of the different nutrient depletions that may be present in Hashimoto's and what to do with them. We'll have a gluten-free quick start guide because when I went gluten-free, I did things all wrong. I did some things, I went on gluten-free junk food, which basically made me feel better in some respects, but worse in others. And then the third thing that you'll find in there is just some quick, nutrient-dense, gluten-free, dairy-free recipes that are, require no chef skills to make. So something that you can make in your home, no matter how busy you are, feed the whole family. They won't even know that it's, nutrient-dense and tasty.
Yeah, eat this, is healthy. Oh, I don't want it then. Eat this, it tastes good. Okay, great.
Exactly.
So here it is. You guys want to put the links below also. Just, I guess you could say just one, if you could share. I love ending with testimonials of success of people that you've worked with. So you've got the women who are wanting to reverse all the things we talked about today, mainly the symptoms, because we care about having a great body and a lot of energy. And so what is the most profound testimonial that you've seen on helping women with this Hashimoto's?
I see a lot of that, ranging from a woman who's able to get off of, antipsychotic medication because she got off of gluten and she was able to reduce all of her psychiatric medications and lost her bipolar diagnosis. So that was really impressive. Ranging to another woman who basically had been trying to diet and lose weight. She went gluten-free, started taking things and just, was eating an intermittent diet, and she was able to lose 40 pounds over the course of a few months without really even trying, not really doing
40 pounds over 3 months, wow.
And then other ones, you see women who were so fatigued that they didn't have enough energy to spend on, their children or hobbies, where after implementing some of the lifestyle changes for the first time in like a decade, one woman said she was able to actually take care of her horses and go horse riding, which was a big passion for her that she hadn't been able to do in decades, almost a decade.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then you mentioned earlier all the things with fertility and digestion, and that's big. I think that's one of the things whenever I hear women saying, I'm having problems getting pregnant, I'm like, go check your thyroid, please.
Absolutely. And I'll have messages from women who unfortunately had miscarriages, and then they were able to implement some of the lifestyle changes, and they were able to give birth to healthy babies. And things like that, they really just touch me and make me so happy to hear that people are getting better. And I'm really glad to have this information out there. Thank you so much, Diane, for having me, because I feel like if a healthy person has 1,000 dreams, and a person that's unwell has just one. So really, to be healthy is to be able to follow your dreams, whatever that may be. If you want to have another baby, if you want to look hot in a swimsuit, or if you want to write a book or get another degree, or whatever you want to do, is having your health in order is going to help you
that just hits you right in the heart. It's because it's so sad. It's like you see, well, I just want to be able to travel and not be an inconvenience to my family because I can't get out of bed. It's like, I just want to feel better. Oh gosh. And your goal now that you are feeling better is to write a second book. And I know that that's going to be happening soon. So the next time that we tune in, Dr. Izabella will have probably had and published her second book. So I'm really excited to talk about that and what you guys can do next, and some of the things that have worked for me, for her, that I learned from her, and what you can do to reverse all of this and feel better. And maybe even just prevention. Maybe you're on even Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism, but you have it in your genes and your family history is of autoimmune disease. And you just want to learn how to just stay more on top of it and healthy for yourself, and have 1,000 dreams, like Dr. Izabella said, instead of just one. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on here today with us, Dr. Izabella. And I really look forward to the next one, because I know this is going to hit a lot of women's hearts too. And I just thank you so much for all that you're doing for all of us women.
Well, thank you so much, Diane. It's been such a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for having me on. Everybody listening at home, I hope this information helps.
Awesome. Okay, see you guys all next time. Cool. So stay tuned in for the next one with Dr. Izabella Wentz. I'll have a few other little shows until then. But in the meantime, make sure you follow her, and make sure that you comment below if you guys have any other things you'd like to add, or if you'd like to contact me and talk about any of this tests or anything. I'm here for you. Okay, bye, warriors.